Dawn. Welcome back to the strategy room. We are talking with our fearless leader, my favorite fearless leader, Dawn, who specializes in relocation. We have a huge opportunity in Knoxville and East Tennessee for relocation. I think it's been the top city to relocate to for the past several years. But there's also a lot of agents that really just lose control over relocation. So we're walking through what works. And Dawn, since this is your specialty, let's let's start with you. Why relocation? Why do you care so much about helping people that are wanting to move here?
Well, when I moved here 21 years ago, we had reached out to a real estate agent and asked to meet up so we could kind of look at the area and try to make a decision as to what city we were going to move to with the job offers that my previous husband had gotten. And when we came down here, our plan in our head was to try to get to know the area a little bit so we knew where to look. And when we met up with that real estate agent, she just popped in, didn't spend 5 minutes with us, and told us to reach out to her when we were ready to start putting offers in. So we drove down here for a weekend and we were just kind of driving around aimlessly. And we didn't know where we were, what the neighborhoods were like, or even how close we were to anything. We just kind of drove around for a couple of days, not really understanding where we were.
Mhm.
So when John and I got married, I had decided that I wanted to get into real estate with him and that I wanted to do relocation so I could help people feel more comfortable when they're making those decisions.
Yeah, that's great. Where do you see like some of these things going wrong? Like what makes, obviously we endeavor to make those processes smoother and helping, those people that are relocating. Where is it really easy to drop the ball when it comes to relocation? Because like for me, it feels like that they're not here, so it kind of feels like out of sight, out of mind a little bit. So where do you take extra steps to solidify that relationship, make sure you're staying connected, things like that?
Well, I mean, I spend a lot of time talking with them on the phone, making notes, setting myself reminders, and just, stuff like that to keep in touch. We set a game plan, every time I'm on the phone with them, I set a game plan. Okay, I'm going to call you back at this date and time, throw it on my calendar so that I don't forget because life does get crazy as a realtor.
Oh, absolutely. Or as a parent in general, whether your kids are grown or like small children, they're always going to need something. So where do your leads come from for relocation? Like how do you get those phone calls? Do you do a lot of social media stuff on relocation? Do you wait for the phones to ring? Like what's your process?
I mean, we do some social media, but the main stuff mainly comes from online. They reach out to us and, I kind of talk to them, get to know them a little bit, try to convince them to come down for just a weekend to kind of look around in the area before jumping into any decisions so that we can kind of give them a tour of the area and kind of explain the different areas. Get to know them and find out what's important to them. What are the stores that they visit the most? That it's important to them not to have to drive an hour to. What kind of activities do they like to do? So that we can narrow in on the different areas. And then what we do is we drive around to the different areas, There's so many different areas here. There's Fountain City, there's Powell, Carnes, Hardin Valley, Farragut, Bearden. I mean, there's just so many areas. And it's the main thing is finding out where, or I should say, what is important to them. And the
Mhm.
best way to do that is by talking with them and spending time with them.
Yeah. So it's really just getting back into that root relationship building and making sure that they are a person and not just a transaction.
Yes, 100%.
Okay, so what would you say is the least understood thing about Knoxville or East Tennessee? So you have somebody that's coming in from out of state. What is something that they don't really, that people are just like, oh, well, we can just move to Knoxville? What's something that's like, well, that's not how it works here?
A walkable city.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
We
if you
want a
want
neighborhood.
walkable,
Yeah. We
yeah.
want a neighborhood where We can walk to the store and walk to restaurants and do all that. And Knoxville is just set up like that at all. You know, it's more rural unless you want to live in the city.
Yeah.
But a lot of the city is college housing. It's become a lot of college housing. And what isn't is, you know, condos that are, you know, a lot more expensive and stuff like that, maybe not as friendly for, you know, large families, multiple cars, whatever. So that's one of the biggest things that people ask for that Knoxville just doesn't really have.
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things that I discuss as well. I've been working with a couple that are coming from a more metropolitan area, and they like have very defined neighborhoods. I feel like when you see Zillow, or like if you're running CMAs and stuff like that and you're like getting tips from other realtors or whatever, they're saying things like, oh, just look in that neighborhood. And I'm like
Yeah,
that's not a very that's kind of a hard thing to do in this area, because it's not like, okay, these two streets are this neighborhood and then you cross the street and it's another neighborhood. Like that's just not really how it's set up here, because like in the neighborhood that I live in, I've got 100 acres of woods up on the hill. I've got a farm next door, and the closest neighborhood is 50 years old. So it's like finding stuff
yeah,
that matches. It doesn't add up. And I think that's one of the things that's really hard to share with with people that are relocating, because it's like, well, what about this neighborhood? And I'm like, that we don't really have neighborhoods. Like you have names of subdivisions, but there's not like an area that has
yeah,
like clear boundary lines.
yeah. The other thing I find too is people that are, say, relocating up from Florida. They want to be in what, you know, show me the retirement communities. So, you know, we really don't have, I mean, yeah, there's Tellico Village, but I mean, it was kind of started out as that, but it's not per se a retirement village like they're looking for where it's 55 and older only.
Yeah.
So, you know, those are some of the other misconceptions that, you know, we want a retirement community.
And I feel like too, Knoxville's not really one of those places where people retire to, like
Yeah.
Florida is. So there are these like really strict communities with age and who can join, because I feel like the mentality in East Tennessee is people are raised and want to live in the home that like, or even on the property that they were raised on. And so it's like been passed down through the family. They have no desire to like uproot their entire life to join some sort of a community. They want to be left completely alone.
Yeah, 100%.
So how let's talk about your showing strategy. So like you convince them to come in for the weekend. Are you packing out the weekend with as many showings as possible? Do they kind of let you have the reins a little bit, where it's like, okay, we're going to explore the area and we're going to see XYZ properties? Like how do you build those weekends for your relocation clients?
What I do is if it's their first visit and they aren't ready to buy now, I do set them up on a portal so that they can pick out some houses so I can kind of get an idea of what type of house that they like and everything. And as we're doing the tour and going around to the different areas, um, you know, I'll pick out a few of the houses to say, oh, so they can see what they get for their money in each of those areas, you know, because it's different in Oak Ridge, it's different in Maryville, it's different in Knoxville, it's different in West Knoxville versus North Knoxville. So we kind of, you know, show them the different areas and at their price point, just kind of show them, you know, what kind of bang for their buck that they get in those different areas.
Yeah, and so I think that kind of goes along with like making sure you're continuing to build trust with those clients as well. And so how do you know when they are moving from like curious, maybe Knoxville's a contender, to they're serious about Knoxville? What switch do you notice in those clients?
They definitely are looking at more houses online, and setting up a game plan to come to town to do nothing but look at homes. So on those weekends, we will spend, the 2 days straight, whatever, however they're long in, doing nothing but looking at homes. I prefer myself to get them in the car so that when we are going to look at those homes, they can actually look at the neighborhood because with not being from around here, you're kind of just paying attention to your GPS getting to a destination. You're not able to look around to see, oh, yeah, there's a grocery store that was just, we saw a grocery store a mile ago, so that's not far at all. Or, oh, our favorite restaurant, was only a couple miles away. So that's why I like to kind of get them into the car so that they can kind of pay attention to the neighborhood, look to see what the other neighbors' yards look like and or just in general what that neighborhood is like for them.
Yeah, it gives you an opportunity to talk in between showings as well and just keep
Yeah.
working on that relationship. And, if there's what they like or don't like about a property that you've just seen without fear of being recorded by a ring camera.
Exactly. And that way the more they talk to you, the more you can pick the proper properties to show them, because if it's I had one couple that had come in from Annapolis, and the first day we looked at all the houses she chose, and the second day we looked at all the houses he chose. And they're like, obviously, we do not know how to pick houses. And I'm like, well, I sent you a house last night that kind of had a lot of what you both were looking for. Let's go look at that one. And we went and looked at that one, and that was the one they bought because it had the important things that both of them wanted.
Yeah, and I think that's a hard thing to do, or that's a hard thing to marry together when obviously buyers are starting their journey online. They're on Zillow, they're on Trulia, they're on homes.com, and they're just searching like, okay, we can afford X amount of dollars, maybe. They've probably not even spoken to a lender yet, but they're just looking to see what's on the market in general.
Right.
And then and it's really hard to like, yeah, you can see the pinpoints on a map and that's give you some like what's the word I'm looking for? That can give you some localization where you're you're kind of like, okay, well, like you can see there's a Walmart down the street, but like what do you pass on the way to Walmart? Like, do you have to jump a creek and like get in a boat? Like, how what is the it doesn't change, it doesn't take away the getting into the area and getting in the car and driving around. Like there's a couple that I've worked with over the past little while, and the first time that I met with them, they kind of gave me carte blanche to just schedule showings because they were more like they had never, you know, explored the area with intentions to buy. They had been to the mountains, all of that. And so we went and they were like, okay, we don't really know where to go. And I was like, okay, here's what I can do for you over the next 2 to 3 days, working in my schedule. Give me permission to schedule showings on your behalf. You may not like them, but I also wanted to teach them because they were very much like, we want to be rural, we want to be away from things. And there are some pockets that feel very rural, and you're 10 minutes from Walmart.
Oh
So I
yeah.
wanted to show them that as well, where it's like, okay, we're not very far from anything, but it feels very private because
Right.
that's a lot of we're in the valley or the foothills or even some into the mountains where it's like you're close to stuff, but it doesn't feel like it. So you can't see that on a map.
Yes. I had one couple where he wanted to be out in the country, he wanted lots of acreage, and she was like, we need to be 20 minutes from Target, Starbucks, and school. So,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
you do.
sometimes it's a high ask. Where it's like
Right.
that does not exist right now. And if it does, those people are holding on to that property for dear life.
Yes. Yes.
So, what do you think relocation clients really need from an agent? What gap are you trying to fill with being a relocation specialist?
Think they need to know and feel comfortable with the area that they're moving into. So I give them all the tools that they need so that they can, if they need to look at schools, just to look at the different areas, I give them all those tools that they need so that they feel comfortable. I go back to when I moved here. My first husband just called me up one day and said, "You're gonna have to trust me on this one. I put an offer in on a house. It was accepted. I'll send you pictures tonight." Because he was already down here working and I was up there waiting for the kids to finish school for the year. So I didn't know. I just felt so left out of the process,
Yeah.
and I want everyone to feel like they're being included in this process, whether they're here in town or not. And I really, yes, if they're up there and the perfect house comes out for sale and oh my gosh, this is the house we have been looking for, this is it, I'll go out and I'll do a virtual tour with them. But then I really encourage them, okay, you need to get down here during the inspection period so you can physically walk into this house. Because I've had people that have, didn't come in and the first time they walked in the house, they were like, oh my gosh, I hate it. It happens. It
Oh yeah.
happens. There's a feeling that you get when you walk into a home that says this is home. This is it. It's not the floor plan. It's the feeling from the neighborhood, from the home itself, from the area.
Yeah. I helped a couple relocate, or they tried to relocate during COVID, and they bought the house sight unseen, didn't come in for the inspection. And when they finally, and they didn't even come like right after closing, it was a couple of months after closing before they were able to actually get into the house. And they called me and they were like, "We're so sorry, this is not going to work." And I was
Mhm.
like, "Okay, like I totally understand." They were like, "It's just way too, it's a whole lot farther out than we thought it was going to
Yeah.
be," because that's something that you can't replicate. Like you can record a drive all day long, but you can't replicate that feeling of, oh my gosh, like it's going to take 30 minutes to get off of the interstate to get to this
Yes.
property. You
And
can't
and
replicate that.
30 minutes of some of these back roads is a lot.
Oh, yeah, especially if you're dealing with switchbacks.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. There's so many different variables of 30 minutes via interstate versus 30 minutes back roads. It's such a different drive.
Yeah. Well, so relocation, it's a huge opportunity in Knoxville. Like we've mentioned, it's been the top city to relocate to for several years in a row, at least top 10. But obviously you have to handle it correctly. So Dawn, we really appreciate you jumping in on the strategy room today. And that's what we're here for, real conversations, real strategy, and just like finding what actually works in our market today. So Dawn, as a ending note, where can we find you on social media? Where do you hang
It's
out on social media?
and on Facebook, it's John and Dawn Powell, Powell. And we also are on Instagram. And you can even go to KnoxvilleRealEstateProfessionals.com and click on Meet the Owners. And you will see John and I on there. And just click on us and send us a message.
Awesome. All right. Well, we thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.
Talk to you later.